Uh, Good day, everyone. So welcome to the first session of our study group, that is R and Python for Shiny. So this study group, we're going to be going through books related to Shiny, and the first book we're going to be going through is Mastering Shiny, so with R. So this is the book which we are going to be going through, which is written by Hadley Wickham. So this book actually discusses how you can actually use Shiny to actually build web applications. So web applications or data applications, which allow you people to make your reports interactive and also make your analysis too interactive. So allowing clients to actually view your data and also your reports and interact with it. So that is what the Shiny framework is used for in our. So with Shiny, you don't actually need knowledge of HTML, CSS, or JavaScript. So just the basic knowledge of R. Though you can actually do some more advanced extension using HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, but to create even an enterprise application, you still having the knowledge of Shiny is still sufficient for you to create an application that actually pass your message across. So this is the book we're actually going to be going through. The first chapter is actually just an introduction to, so this is an introduction to the Shiny. So the Shiny package, you can actually install it using the install.packages Shiny. So once you install it, you now load it just like your normal regular R packages using library Shiny. So the creating an app directory and file. So this is our R Studio now. Okay, let me close this. Okay, so these are R Studio that are open. So for us to create a Shiny app, so we have to create the project for that particular Shiny application. So we just go to new projects. So this is just like a directory where I'm going to be storing the files for the particular application. I'm going to go to new directory. So you can see I'm having a template already for my Shiny project. So we just go to Shiny application. So once you go to Shiny application, then you just put your directory name. I can just say my first Shiny app. So my first Shiny app is going to be the name of our directory. So I'm going to be storing that inside my documents directory, and I'm going to create the particular project. So this is already a project file that for my Shiny app with a template. So you can see that by default already, a file has already been created for me called app.r. So this app.r usually contains the file that you're going to use to run your Shiny application. And you can also see that there's already also a template. If I should click on run app, which actually runs the application. So when you click on run application, then you can be able to view your application here. Just you can see you can have a view of your application. So this is just a basic Shiny application which shows how to control your histogram using by controlling the number of bins of the histogram. So this is just based on a particular data called Old Faithful Geisha data. So you can want to stop the application, you just close the app and the application is going to stop. So this is just the basic functionalities of how a Shiny app look like. For now, we just know that the app is on, usually you write all your files inside app.r. So app.r has to be the name of that particular file. So, and this is going to be your application. So this is a basic Shiny application. So let's copy this and paste. So you can see this is a Shiny application. So a Shiny application is divided into two parts, or building a Shiny application is divided into two parts. So first of all, we have the UI. This is the user interface, and we have the server. This is the server. So this is the server, line 7 to 8. This is the server, and this is the UI. So this is just a basic Shiny application that prints hello world. If I should click run app, so I have to save it first before running it. Save selected. So save it, then I'll run it. Okay, I think there's a typographic error. Okay, so running that particular application now, you can see I'm having hello world. So this hello world that you are seeing is just what we put on our UI. So this is just how a basic Shiny app looks like. It takes the user interface. So the user interface is what the client actually sees on its own end. So the client can actually interact with the application through the user interface, and anything displayed there is through this particular user interface. And the server side is what the clients can't actually see. So this is what handles things like processing of results, processing of analysis, or processing of output that you can display to the user. So these are what happen on the server side. So most of the times what is on the server side is just meant for the developer. It's all what the developer already coded inside the server side. So the client that's actually using the application can't see what's on the server side. So, and the server side actually is a function that actually takes input, output, and session. So inputs are mostly most of what your client will input on the user interface, while outputs are mostly what the client will actually output, are mostly what you actually give your clients on the user interface. So you receive input and you give output from the server side. So that's just basic functionality. And you also, for your application to run, you need to have this at the end, Shiny app UI and server. So this is just like a function connecting the two of them together to work, which means if you don't have this, you can't run your app. So this is just a basic Shiny application. Okay, so those are all what was already discussed in those parts. I've already talked about it. So let's now go to adding UI controls. So this, let's copy this block of code, adding UI controls. So if I just paste this here, or okay, let me just paste all of this. So you can see now, currently we're having, you can also see that our Shiny app is open. It's showing listening. So if I want to stop it, I can just say Control C. So most of the time, if I say Control C, or just click on this particular stop button, Control C is not working. So you can see it's just to stop the application. So you can see the window already closed. So these are our inputs. So you can see this is just a basic user interface. So this interface, let me just expand it a little bit and let me run the application. Okay, so we need to always be saving, always remember to save before you run the application. So you can see it now. So what this just is just that from a particular package, it shows us a list of data sets. You can see it. So it shows us a list of data sets. Ma, please, can you mute the mic? So it shows us a list of data sets. As you can see it here, we have a various list of data sets. So this currently now, this is just user interface. It's not actually doing anything in the application. So let's close it. First of all, now, the first thing we have is select inputs. So this function actually allows you to create that particular widget you saw earlier on that allows you to select inputs. So first of all, in this function, we give an ID. So this is the ID that we're giving, data sets, and we give the label. So the label is what you actually see at the top. So let me just run the app again. So display is side by side. So let me just do like this. Okay, so now we can see the application now. This is our label. So this label here that is showing. So if I should just see our data sets. So I should reload. So you can see it has already changed to our data set. So this is the label of this particular input that you are seeing here. So now, and also, this is our ID. I will come to this later on. This ID is actually what we need to identify our input inside the server side. Then we have choices. So this particular choice is just a list of packages, list of data sets inside this particular package called data sets. So if I should just run this particular code on my console now, if I should just run it in this place, let's say I run it here. Let's say I close the application and I run it here. So you can see that this is a list of all the packages under that particular data set. So you can see it. So it's as good as just using something like this It's as good as just saying, instead of this ls package data sets, it's as good as just saying a passenger. I can just say iris and just say empty cars. So let me just save and run application. Okay, I'm going to see. Okay, C, sorry, C. Should be using the, okay. So you can see it now. So just similar thing. So that's just listing our data set in that particular place. So, but currently now we can't do anything. That's because we have not done anything on our server side. So you can only just select, but nothing can be done because it's still on the user interface. Next, we have what we call verbatim text output. So anytime you want to output a code or result or a printout from the console, you use verbatim text output. This is the function you use. And we have table output. You see all this now when we start building the server side. We also have table output. So this is table output that allows you to also output table. So each particular type of output, like plots, they each have the function that they are used for outputting those kind of outputs. So now the next thing I can see about server side now, which is also called behavior. You can see this is our server side. So I'm copying it now. I'm going to here to paste it. So this is our server side. So now the first thing I can see on our server side now is that so you can see that I told you that it takes input from the UI and process an output which it takes back to the user interface. So the two of them interact with each other. So now we have two outputs. Now, first of all, when building on server side, you need to know the number of input and outputs you have. We have one input and we have two outputs: a summary, which is an code printout from the console, and also a table output. So the first thing now we have to do now is to build the summary output. So this is the summary output, as you are seeing, output summary. So now while we are using the output $ summary, is that this it's trying to tell us that, okay, you are going to calculate an output called summary, but you need to associate it with your server side output by using this $. Because by using this $ now, we are saying output summary now. You are trying to say that, okay, this particular summary I'm referring to, because this is the ID that I have given. You cannot have two of these. You cannot have two outputs with the name summary. You cannot have two outputs with the name table. You cannot have two outputs with the same data set. So you can only have one unique ID for each particular input or output that you are using. So that is why you see we're identifying their names here. So just saying that, okay, the output at the user interface is called summary. So we identify it as output $ summary, and we want to print it out. So that's why I'm using the function render print. Now, this gets is just enough function for getting that. Like I can just say now, like earlier on, I printed this out on the console. So I just say packages data sets. Okay, sorry, this. So you can see I told that it's listing all these particular data sets here. You can see it now. So now this get function, how it just does is that it just gets a data set for me. I can just say get. Let me copy all of this. And I can just select a particular data set here. Let me select women. So what it does is that it gets the particular name of that particular data set from this list of data sets from, or from that particular package called data set. So this is what the function does. So now that means that this value that we'll be having now, data set, is going to be this particular data. So for example, now if I should go back to the previous line and see data sets, supposed to now say print out data sets. So can you see the value of data sets now? Can you see what we have? So which means that what we're expecting we're expecting a data set from this particular line of code. Then we now say what summary data set. So summary now of data sets. So this is not going to be our summary. So you can see this is a console output. That's why we're using verbatim text output. So with just this now, I've already created our summary output already using this particular ID. You cannot create an ID, you cannot create an output for a ID that is not existing in your user interface. So it has to exist in the user interface. Now, the same thing also we'll do for that of table. You can see we're also referring to our output here. Now, I want our output here to display what? To display datasets table. So that is just display dataset table. So this especially, it should display this. So with this now, I already created two outputs now, summary and dataset. So if we should run the application now, run app. So you can see what we have now. Having our summary and also having our dataset. So any place I select, you can see that what we are going to be having the respective summary of. So this is what we call reactivity. So this is what we call reactivity in Shiny. So Shiny actually makes use of reactivity. So when you click on a particular data set, you are able to get that particular values for that particular data set. So we call that's why Shiny makes use of reactive programming, whereby it actually reacts both the input and the output. So based on the change of an output, the output automatically what reacts. So that's what we actually call reactive expression. So we actually use reactive expression, just like the way we use function to prevent duplication of code. That's the way we also use reactive expression. So look at this example now. You can see that we repeated line 11, we also repeated line 16. 11 and 16 are repeated. So we actually use a reactive expression to prevent duplication of code. So I'll just come here and copy this. These are server side and replace it with what we have here. Okay, so let me just put the two together so that we just compare. Then we'll remove one of them. So you can see our first server side here. You can see the second one. So the difference is that now in this instance, this first one are actually duplicating this because they are both the same function. They do the same thing. It's just that both of them are using the data sets. You have two outputs and they are using the same function to get the data set. So to prevent duplication of code, you can just use reactive expression using this reactive function. You can see using the reactive function, you enclose it with the what? With your code that you're actually repeating, which is get input datasets, package datasets. So once we just do this, you will now see that we don't need to duplicate this code again. So what we just do is just like we already created a function, but we call it the reactive expression. So we just use inside all these places. Once I just use this, so I already have this now created. So I already have this, you can see my reactive expression, I already have it created. So because of that, then I don't need this again. You can see I don't need this again. So what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to say data sets, and I'll call it like a function. You can see what I've already. I'm just going to say data sets, and I call it like a function. So let me just remove this particular server side. And when I run my app, it's safe. So when I run my application, you can see that I still have the same thing. So this is what is called reactive expression. So this I can reduce duplication of code when you're working on your server side. So in short, now I already talked through about the basic components of a Shiny application, both the user interface and the server side, and how can also build relationship between these particular two. So most of the times, not only will you even see the using output, not only will you use the $ with the output, even to reference anything, whether the input or the output, you are going to use the input $ and the ID of that particular input. So I'm going to, like I can see in this place now, we use the ID of that particular input data set. You can see we use the $ to refer to it that this is our input and this is our output. So that is what you are just trying to do. I'm trying to identify those ID like this is my input, this is my output, and this is what I want them to be. So I'm receiving an input and I'm giving an output. So that's what you are trying to do. So we have basic UI. So let's go to, okay, there's some exercise in the first chapter. Let's try and go through it. Okay, this is the first exercise that said create an app that greets the user by name. You don't know all the functions you need to do this yet, so I've included some lines of codes below. Think about which lines you will use and then copy and paste them into the right place in a Shiny app. So you see, you just created the lines of code. I should create an app that we greet the user by name. So let's just copy this and go to our code and figure it out. So I'm just going to copy all these and paste. Okay, let me just copy it and paste here. Let me clear all of this and clear all of this. So just paste it. So we want it to greet a user by name. So what are we going to do? We are going to just copy so that is the app. Okay, let's go back to see it. So the create an app that actually greets a user by name. So we should just pick the lines of code that we need that actually give us what we want. So what we're going to do now, first of all, let's build our user interface. So which means our user interface needs to have a prompt that will show that, telling the user that, okay, please, what is your name, so that it will be able to greet the user. So we'll just go and say, pick this particular text input and paste it here. Text input allows us, the user, to be able to input their name. And under it is going to be showing the label, what is your name. Then next, we also carry our output, which is going to be our greeting. So that is the greeting that user is going to be getting. So the greeting, the user is going to be getting an output of greeting. So after the user inputs the name, this greeting ID is going to contain how we greet the user, whether if it is hello, then with the user's particular name. Now we already have these two. Then what we need to do next is to process the greeting. So this way we are going to copy this particular output greeting.
Hello.
That the user actually gave, which I see you are referring with as a what ID input name. So now let's just clear this. We already picked the necessary items that we need. So let's save and we reload app. So can you see it's just showing hello now? So I'm just going to now put my name, one. So you can see it's saying hello with one. And I can see it's already was greeting me by name. It's already greeting by my name. So I'm already done with that particular exercise. Now exercise 2 says, suppose your friend wants to design an app that allows the user to set a number X between 1 and 50 and displays the result of multiplying this number by 5. This is their first attempt. So we want to design an app that allows the user to set a number X between 1 and 50 and display the result of multiplying this number by 5. And this is their first attempt. But unfortunately, this was the error they get. So can we detect this particular error? So let's copy this and go back to the application and paste. So this is it now, and let's just reload and see the error ourselves. So you can see the error that we're having, object X not found. So why is it saying that object X is not found? So which means we're supposed to be getting the output, which is X times 5, but it's saying object X not found. So what's happening? So let's check our output. So let's check it and see. So I'll just give you a few minutes to see if you can see the error. Okay, so now, if you look at it now, I told you that earlier on that we have input and output, and to refer to them in our server side, we need to always assign them with these tags and $sign. So either it is an input or is an output, we need to signify. You cannot just put the name of the ID of those particular inputs directly. So this was why our friend here was having an error. Our input here is X, but it did not signify whether the input X is whether X here is an input or an output. So what we need to do here now is just to put input and $sign then X, which means that we already identified X as an input, and save, and we reload the app. So you can now see that we have the value of X times 5. So I already fixed the issue for our friend. So now the next exercise is actually saying extend the app from the previous exercise. User to set the value of the multiplier Y so that the app gets the value of X times Y. So the final result should look like this. So now they're asking us to extend the app the one that we just did earlier on, such that if we actually set X and Y, then it should be multiplying X and Y. So let's go back and see. So what we just need to do now, we're also going to give another slider input for X. So we're going to say X. So I'm going to give another slider input for Y. So now this is slider input, and how slider input actually works. So let me reload the app. Let me save. Okay, comma. So how the slider input works is like this. So if you look at this now, the slider input takes your ID, your input ID, then your label, if X is what you're actually seeing here. So here is for Y, so let's change this to Y. If Y is, then you can see the minimum value, which is 1. If I should change this now to -1, you can see it's now -1, the minimum value. So it's 1, let's leave it as 1. You can see the maximum value, and you can see the default value, which is 30. You can change the default value to 20 and save. You can now see that default value is already what, 20. So now this is already Y input. So now they ask us to process X times Y. So which means that now instead of input X times 5, so we're going to say input X times Y. But you see we have what, an error. Why? Because we haven't identified Y as an input or output. So we go back and put input $Y. And by doing that, you can now see that our problem is already solved. We have input X times input Y. So we need to select value of Y. Okay. So we say then X times Y is, okay, our input ID here should be Y. Save it and reload. So you can see now we can be able to multiply both X and Y. So this is it. So always make sure to change your input ID. So that's why it wasn't loading earlier on. So input ID here is Y. So, and you refer to them in this place, you identify them inside your server side. So now the next exercise that we have is saying that, okay, take the following app, which adds some additional functionality to the last application described in the last exercise. What's new? How could you reduce the amount of duplicated code in the app by using a reactive expression? So they asked us to look at the following app that adds some functionality to the app we did earlier on. And how can you reduce the amount of duplicated code in the app by using a reactive expression? So let's copy this code and paste it inside our Shiny application. So I'll just paste it and we reload the app. Let's see. So now you can see now we have still our input is X and Y, and we have X times Y plus 5 and X times Y plus 10. So now let's look at duplicated codes in our here. So we can see that now we have what duplicated codes here. We have product. You can see we have been using products like thrice. So we can actually reduce this duplication using our reactive expression. I explained earlier on our reactive expression. So I can just say, products is equals to reactive expression. I now bring this here, products. I'll bring it here. Okay, so let me check the function, sure about it. Okay, reactive. Okay, so we're correct. So let's go back. So then we remove this. So now this is input of x times y. So we don't need to duplicate it again. We already have it. So I'm just going to remove this, and here is going to be products. So you can see this is going to be products. Going to be products. Okay, sorry. So cancel this and say products. Call it as a function. Here also the same thing, and I remove this line. So let's save and reload the application. You can see that we still have the same value. So this is how we can reduce duplicated code inside this particular application. Now let's go back and finish the last question. So it says the following app is very similar to one we have seen earlier on. So you can see that the following app is very similar to one I've seen earlier in the chapter. We select a data set from a package. This time we're using ggplot2 package. I'm very sure familiar with it. If you're not familiar with it, ggplot2 is actually a visualization library, and the app prints out a summary and plot of the data. It also follows good practice and makes use of reactive expression to avoid redundancy of code. However, there are 3 bugs in the code provided below. So the actual thing is that there are 3 bugs inside this place. So we should try and find them and also fix the bugs. You should find and fix. So we're not only finding, we're also fixing. So let's go back and we copy and we paste. So you can see now this is our application, and let's roll it. So, and let's run and see what is wrong with it. It's saying unused argument X. So now they say there are 3 bugs. So let's try and see what are the bugs. Let's go through the application. So first of all, we're able to get our data sets here. Here I did. Okay, data sets here I did. We're able to get it. Choices data sets. There's no problem here. But this is also outputs a summary and also outputs a plot. So using this plot function. But if we look at it now, the verbatim text output here has the ID as an output called summary. But this is referencing another output different. Instead of summary, so I told you earlier on that time that we use this particular output for plots. So that is why our plot is not displaying. So just refresh this, reload the app. So we still have a problem. It's telling us that the plot is now going out. If you notice, you can see that so let's try and see which other particular bug do we have. We still have, I think we have solved 2 bugs. We have 1 more bug instead of argument of X. So let's see render plots, plot data sets. Okay. Output plots. Let me see. I think, yeah, I think the spelling is correct. Okay, which other problem might we be having here? Okay. Okay, now the problem that we actually have here, I don't know if you have seen it. So because I've already declared a reactive expression, so we cannot call a reactive expression
Sorry,
just
you're
by
not
the name.
sharing your screen. You're not
Wow.
sharing your screen.
Wow. Okay, sorry. Okay. So should I? Okay, let me just start all over. So this is where this is like the function. This is like the app that I wanted us to show the bug for. So well, we want to fix the bug inside this particular application. It's telling us unused argument X. So we try and look at it now. So we can actually see typographical error here. So always remember that any output that you not declare your user interface, you are not going to be able, the server side will not be able to process that particular output. So now, as we had an output now with this spelling, then the server side will have outputted it. But this is actually what we are referring to here. So let's copy this and replace it with this. And we save and reload the app. You can now see our output is showing. Now, we're actually told that we have 3 bugs. So I've already solved one, remain one more. So if you look at here, we're having output plots. So which means we're expecting a plot here. But on the user interface, it's referring to as a table output, not a plot output. And we use table output for tables. Let's say you want to output a data frame or a subset of a data frame. So I need to remove this and put plot output. Once I use plot output, I reload the app, and you can see now that it's showing me that I still haven't solved the problem yet. When you look at it also, you can see that we already declared the reactive expression here. But this reactive expression now, for it to be able to refer to it, you need to call it like a function. So you can see that's why we're having what this data sets and a function. So now let's save it and reload the app. So you can now see that we have all the plots for this particular data set. So I've already fixed the 3 bugs that we have. We have already fixed the 3 bugs that we have inside this particular exercise. Okay, I don't know what's happening. We already fixed the bugs that we have inside this particular exercise. So that's it for chapter 1, which is just getting started with R Shiny. So just a quick recap and summary of what we have treated so far. So we talked about creating a directory for your Shiny application. Also talked about how you can run the Shiny app. You just use the run button, run your app. We also talked about the 2 basic components of the Shiny application, which are user interface and server side. So just for now, you can put all of them in a single file, but with time, when you are building complex and big applications, so you need to separate both of them inside various files. Also, but for now, you can build it inside your app.r file. And also, we talked about reactivity and reactive expressions. Reactive expressions is used when you want to reduce code duplication inside your application. And also going through some exercises where we can know how to identify errors when we are building a Shiny application. And one thing is that you need to understand how it works, because most of the times your app will still run, but it's just going to show you an error, or sometimes you will not even see your output. Okay, let's say, for example, something like this now. Imagine a typical error like this, just an M that I've already added, and I reload the app. You can see that there is no error here. So you will just be, it somehow seems frustrating, because Shiny, most of the times, you'll be the one to like, most of the times, it's only in serious cases whereby you can actually even see an hint of the error that you're having, or the place that you're having issue. Like in this situation now, I'm declaring a different output, and here I'm referencing another output. So you can see that that output is not there, and you just be wondering where the problem actually is and what's happening. While it's just a single M I've already added into a summary. So most of the time, I have to be very careful. I need to understand how it works. If you understand how it works, you can be able to debug it when you have an issue or when you have a problem. So you save it back and you load the application, and you can see that the bug is already fixed. So I think for this session, we will stop at this chapter. So in the next session, study session, I will expect most of you to already checked chapter 2 and 3. So we'll be covering more chapters subsequently, chapter 2 and 3, which is basic user interface and basic reactivity. So we'll go into deep into the activity in this particular chapter, and also go deep into user interface in this particular chapter. Okay, so this is the end of the session today. Thank you very much all for watching and listening.